Hi, third graders. We are going to continue reading where we left off in Save Me a Seat. So we're on chapter 36, Joe. We're going to play a little guessing game, Mrs. Beam explains. The goal is to match up the objects sitting on the desk with the sentences in the basket. Great. I've only been at school for 15 minutes and my day is already in the toilet. I look at the empty dish. No one is going to be able to match it with the sentence I wrote. Not in a million years. Ravi is busy unwrapping his package. I am curious to see what's inside, so I lean to my left so I can watch him. The brown paper is held on with about 1 million pieces of Scotch tape. When he finally gets it off, there's another layer of newspaper underneath. And under that, a layer of tinfoil and a lot more Scotch tape. Before we start, Mrs. Beam tells us, I'd like you all to quietly make your way around the room, familiarizing yourself with the objects on each of the desks. I'll give you a few minutes to do that, and then we'll begin our game. Miss Frost always says that the best place to start is at the beginning, so I go over to the first desk in the first row. Amy Yamaguchi brought a teddy bear, or at least I think that's what it is. It's a little hard to tell because it's gray and it doesn't have any stuffing left in it. Not only that, the face is completely worn off. Whatever it is, it's ancient and probably doesn't smell too good up close. Some of the other girls brought in stuffed animals too, or girly junk like charm bracelets and flavored chapstick. A lot of the boys picked video games or sports stuff, including Tim O'Toole, whose personal reflection object is his own front tooth. Everybody knows the story. He knocked out his tooth last summer sliding into a goalpost during a hockey game. Even though there was blood gushing out of his mouth, he still managed to score the winning goal, which is how his picture ended up on the front page of the Hamilton Herald with a caption under it that said, "Plucky local kid just won't quit." I'm about to start walking down the next row of desks when I hear Lucy Mulligan scream. Mrs. Beam goes running over to see what's wrong, and pretty soon there's a big crowd of kids standing around Ravi's desk. This is one of those times when being taller than everyone else comes in handy, because I can see right over their heads. Ravi has finally finished unwrapping his package. Sitting on the desk is a glass jar filled with crummy-looking water, and swimming around in that crummy water are 3 long, slimy, black... ... And that's where the chapter ends, but lucky for you, I'm going to read one more chapter, so we'll see what it is. Chapter 37, Ravi. Leeches, I say, as everyone leans closer to see what I have in my jar. Yesterday, Prapia and I took a long walk together. Where are we going? I asked him. You'll see, he said. Ever since we moved to New Jersey, Prapia has been very quiet. He eats his meals without a word, then goes and sits on the sofa to chew his nuts and read his newspaper. But yesterday, as we walked together, he had a lot to say. What's this I hear about you wanting to quit school? He asked. Nobody likes me, I told him. They think I smell funny. It doesn't matter what they think. Quitting is not an option. I know, I said. Appa told me. That's because I told your father that same thing when he was a boy. And someday, when you have children of your own, you'll tell them too. Quitting is not an option. You don't understand, I said. Nobody does. For a while, we walked in silence. Do you know that in India, tea has to be plucked by hand, Ravi? My grandfather said finally. 3 leaves in a bud, right from the very top of the tea bush. The tea pluckers pick the tender shoots and drop them into baskets to hang from their heads. When I was a young man, my first job was to work at the tea plantation. I had to stand in the rain and guard the workers, protecting them from wild animals that might be lurking nearby. What kind of wild animals? I asked, but my grandfather didn't answer. Instead, he took me by the hand and led me through the tall grass to the edge of the pond. Amma and Pramia were always warning me not to go near. What are we doing here? I asked. Again, my grandfather didn't answer. He bent his knees and crouched down, careful not to let his his vesti touched the muddy ground. I'm going to check and see if at the back it says what that word is so that I make sure I'm saying it right. Let's see. Veshti, a traditional Indian man's garment wrapped around the waist and the legs and knotted at the waist. And it says veshti. Veshti. Great. Good to have my pronunciation guide because I'm missing some of you guys at school who usually help me out with the book. So it said, careful not to let his veshti touch the muddy ground. I crouched down beside him and watched as he dipped the tea strainer in the water and began dragging it very slowly through the weeds at the edge of the pond. 2 times he pulled the strainer out and peered in only at dirt and dead leaves, but on the 3rd try, his efforts were met with success. 3 long, black, worm-like creatures wriggled in the strainer. We used to call them Draculas in disguise, Perpia told me. The tea plantations were infested with them during the monsoon season. They were much larger than these skinny fellows, but these will have to do. Do for what? I asked. Permia told me about your assignment. The assignment is to find something that represents who I am, I told my grandfather. Do you think that I'm a leech? Perpia laughed and pulled the small glass jar from his pocket. Fill this to the top with water, he said, handing it to me. When I had finished filling the jar, he dropped the leeches in, closed the cap, and tightened it. These leeches are a reminder of who we are and where we've come from, Robbie, and all of the hardships we've endured to get here. I thought about our house in Bangalore and my friends back at my school, especially Pramod. I thought about the way things used to be, the way I used to be. I don't know who I am anymore, Perpia, I told my grandfather. You are Ravi, my grandfather said, putting his arm around me and pulling me close. You never give up. We work hard, against all odds, and believe in ourselves. Who would have thought that? I, a small tea plantation owner, would be able to send his son to a fine university and to help bring his whole family to live in America too. But that is what happened. I miss Bangalore, I say softly. Me too, but you will have many more opportunities here. Doesn't feel like home, I told him. Give it time, Perpia said, reaching for my hand. Come on, Ravi. Amma and Permia are waiting. If we stay out any longer, they'll think we've been carried off by that terrible wind Permia is always complaining about. Everyone in room 506 is still crowded around my desk, trying to get a look at the leeches. The time is right, so I open my pencil box and take out the blue candy, the one Miss Frost gave me in the resource room 2 days ago. I put it in my desk and forget all about it until this morning. Now this little blue candy is about to play the starring role in my big plan. I look around to make sure no one is watching. Then I place the candy in the glass dish on Bigfoot's desk. All right, so that's the end of that chapter. We will have to continue reading to see what happens. For those of you who don't know what a leech is, it looks kind of like a long worm. They can be different sizes, but they're skinny and flat usually, and they kind of swim in the water like this, and they suck on to your skin or onto the skin or the side of a fish, and they suck blood. And there are some people who have leeches as pets or things, or people who study different animals, and they sometimes let the leeches suck on their hand and suck blood because they don't take that much from a human, and they're not too hard to pull off. If you are ever swimming in a lake that has leeches and one sticks onto you, you just kind of pull it off, and it leaves a little sucker mark for a little while, but goes away. But that's probably why they were called Dracula, right? Dracula's in disguise, because they suck your blood. And sometimes if they suck the blood of a really small fish or an animal, it could kill them if they took too much blood, but typically they just suck a little because that's what they eat, and then they move on. So it's really interesting to see that Ravi brought that to school. And I'm also very curious about his plan with the blue M&M. That was my guess of what Joe's special item was one of the blue M&Ms. And it makes sense that Dylan Samreen ate it because you would eat an M&M. Hopefully you wouldn't steal an M&M from someone else's project, but that at least is something that is edible. So I'm excited to continue reading with you guys next time on Save Me a Seat. See you later. Bye.